how's it going, everybody? It is episode 104. That's right, episode 104 here on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes back with you. As always, our guy Jonathan on the controls. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile and HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union, as always, coming through in the clutch for us, sponsoring this episode. I don't know if you guys have heard, it's game week. The University of Hawaii football team is back on the field this Saturday. 1:30 p.m. Hawaii time, the kickoff in Nashville as they take on Vanderbilt. A redo, if you will, of last year's season opener in Hawaii. They return the favor as they get their season started this year on the road. And we'll take on the Commodores out of the SEC. We recorded this Wednesday, August 23rd, set to release this tomorrow on the 24th. And, of course, 2 days after that, it'll be kickoff. The Bows already made the trip, flew out yesterday a little later in the day and went direct on a charter to Nashville. So they're on the ground. They're getting ready, getting acclimated. And I'm sure a lot of excitement for this group as they finally get to hit the field, right? It has been a prolonged off season, if you will, because of the early start to spring practice. And so you kind of turn the page a little bit earlier than usual. And as they've gone through summer and fall camp, they are here ready to go. So quick little opening drive here, Hunter. What's that like for these guys when you finally, when you can finally turn the page and it's like, hey, we're back at practice on Monday. And by the way, we actually have a game at the end of this week.
It's a full-on coming alive situation, Jordan. The month-long fall camp is officially over, and we're days away from getting to hit somebody, which for a lot of our big boys, I'm telling you, they go to bed thinking about that every night. Just the opportunity to lay someone out, our offensive line, to pancake somebody. That's literally what these guys live for. And on the, it's a chance to find out what we're made of and see if we can't do something special. That's the cool thing of every new season. It really doesn't matter what preseason polls, what the Mountain West Media Day says about your team. At the end of the day, you still have to go out there and play football. And at the start of a season like this, it's kind of where you get to be a little kid again and dream really big dreams and get really excited for what's literally right around the corner. And the season's upon us. And in some ways, Jordan, it's one of the best times of the entire year if you're a sports fan. And if you're an athlete, like all the UH guys are, this is what they live for. So I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, everybody's full of optimism at this point, right? Around the team. We've gotten some comments and appreciate you guys dropping us a line on YouTube or whatnot that predict maybe a little bit lower than we had in terms of win total, and I think that's fair. You know, for a team that went 3-10 last year, the wise guys have Hawaii as like a 3.5 win total for this season. But it's a tremendous opportunity to go play in SEC territory on national TV in a weekend slate that isn't very full, right? This is the week 0 game, and so are there 10? I forgot to count the exact total, like roughly on Saturday. So it's a very thin Saturday slate, and Hawaii will have a lot of eyeballs on it. So it's a great opportunity for this program that has rebranded the run and shoot. Very, a lot of people, and I think rightfully so, have drawn a ton of parallels to 2018. With Rolo and that squad in his third year, albeit this is Coach Chang's second year, but coming off of a 3-win season, recommitting, if you will, to the run and shoot, starting the season on the road, week 0. Early on, it was Colorado State in the conference game that year, but a chance to go maybe maybe land an early impression, whether that's in a win or if that's playing well against this Commodore team. All right, we got a lot to break down. We got a lot to talk about. The Two Deep is out. We'll break that down for you. We'll get into a little bit of Vanderbilt talk as well later on in the podcast, probably in the second half. But before we get there, we want to remind you that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union. Originally opened in 1936 as a credit union for educators, HawaiiUSA has inspired a culture of giving that is rooted in education and has since become Hawaii's largest credit union and expanding to other areas of community need that impact financial health, including healthcare, housing, and hunger. To learn more, please visit HawaiiUSAFCU.com. All right, game time here on episode 104. Before we kind of get into the lineups, the nitty gritty here, the guys that have emerged and earned spots out of camp, at least on paper. What's maybe the biggest thing you'll be watching for, like your biggest question, Hunter, going into this week 0, opener for Hawaii?
Man, that's a loaded question there, Jordan. We've got so
you
much.
Can have multiple. You can be looking at multiple things. We don't have to box you in or anything, but just kind of curious, because I know you like most of us will watch it, from a certain lens, right? How you consume football games, especially as a guy who played quarterback. But just, kind of curious, what do you think you'll be, keening in on as this game gets underway?
Oh man, I can't help but think about the run and shoot. First of all, first and foremost, are we going to be able to get the ball out of our hands, get the ball to our receivers in space? Are we going to, as a receiver unit, run the routes in the right read fashion to what the defense is giving you? Because and again, I would hope that everyone that watches and listens to Hawaii Football Now just elevates their football IQ a little bit whenever they are watching Hawaii football. Every route can be like 4 different options for each of the 4 receivers, depending on what coverage is being given them. So anytime, this is a public service announcement to everyone out there that's getting excited for Hawaii football. If a ball goes somewhere and the receiver's nowhere in sight, it was probably a miscommunication. Don't be so quick to blame Mr. Shager, number 13, and say that it was all his fault. It's a beautiful kind of concoction, cocktail, recipe, whatever you want to call it. When the run and shoot is flowing at its best, it's a beautiful thing to watch, but it sometimes takes some reps in a game-like environment for it to really start clicking on all cylinders. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. Number 2, we still have tight ends on our roster. Rolo incorporated tight ends into the run and shoot, and so this is one of our first true samples of what the Timmy Chang version of the run and shoot is going to look like. So, it would be amazing if we go out there and score 50 points, Jordan. But, if you break down every one of our games from last season, if we can just average 28 points a game, 1 score a quarter, we'll be in fantastic shape, I think, this season. And so I'm wondering if guys like Grayson Allen and others can help kind of round out that passing attack, and hopefully we get in the end zone a ton.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by a lot of the things that you talked about. How does this offense look? What's the timing look like early on, right? How on the same page are they? Because it'll take growing pains. Like that's the nature of the offense. And I love spoken like a true quarterback there by you. If it's a miscommunication, it was probably on the receivers. I'll go the other way. I'm going to be really curious to see how the defense looks early on. Last year it was a weird game, right? Hawaii was up early. It was 14-10, like drive. Midway through. Yeah, they looked great on the first drive, right? It was like, wow, here we go. It got worse afterwards. It was 14-10, like midway through the second quarter. It was 21-10 at halftime. Didn't look like it was necessarily going to be a blowout. And the next thing you know, right, Vandy scores 35 points in the third quarter on their way to a 63-10 win. But for this defense, and we'll break down the personnel here a bit, right? There are a ton of new faces, a ton of transfers, JC and Power 5 transfers. Some of them that were here last year as well, but a lot of guys with a lot of experience, or at least college experience, right? Collegiate experience. Are they going to be better against the run? And I think we'll find out early, right? This is a Vanderbilt team that likes to run the football. They're a little different at quarterback than what we saw last year, and at running back as well. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But that's something that I will be really, really focusing in on to see. And it's a little bit different test, right? You're going up against SEC offensive linemen. It's not necessarily what we're going to see week in and week out in the Mountain West, but I think, seeing how this defense looks, how does it look different than last year? How do those linebackers play with Logan Taylor obviously being the guy now? That's the offense. I think, for us, obviously that's our jam. But I'm early on. How does this defense look, especially against a big offensive front, against a good running attack? How does that look? So that's kind of where I'll be looking at early on, in seeing, does it look a little different? Is there a 3-yard push every time? Are they going to be better against the run, which they were as the season went on last year? But this will be a really good test right out of the gate off the plane against a physical football team. And I think, I think we've got the horses for it this year. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unanswered questions on the defensive side of the football. With the the additions of Cam Stone and Verdell Edwards kind of rounding out those DB spots on the outside. Can we lock down the passing attack? And with that comes, what sort of game plan is Vandy going to try to throw at us? I think if you're a Power 5 SEC school, it almost would be, I'd almost say, foolish, Jordan, to put the ball in the air when they ran it right down our throats last season. So with that comes our ability to stop the run. And I think outside of some of our D line that's going to be asked to play a very difficult game, it's going to come down to our linebackers to kind of fill some gaps. I'm really excited that we have a healthy Isaiah Tufanga coming back this season. We have a full season of Logan Taylor waiting for us, and a few others that I think are going to be huge in our ability to help stop the run here. Because you were on the sideline with me last season, Jordan. That offensive line was SEC big. So I'm curious, borderline worried how that's going to look. But hey, we're playing football. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was big to the tune of 404 rushing yards last year. That's what Vanderbilt ran for. So there's room for improvement there. But that's gonna be my thing. I think if they can be better up front, that'll go a long, long way for this group. Overall in the season, not just here against Vanderbilt. All right, let's get into the 2 deep here, Hunter. How about that? We'll take a look. You want to start on offense? You want to start on defense? Special teams?
Let's stay on defense. We're
stay on defense. I like it. Yeah. And so this group here, right? If you look through it, it kind of jumps out to you how many guys have come from different programs and bring a wealth of experience, various different levels. But on the front end, they listed as like a 3-3, right? 3 linemen, 3 linebackers, and then 5 defensive backs. It could be like a 4-2-5, right? You've got those stand-up guys on the edge, the likes of Jonah Kahavai-Welch listed as one of those linebackers. And then the defensive linemen, you've got at defensive end, you got Andrew Choi, the Kaiser senior. Listed behind him is Tariq Jones as the number 2 guy at that position. At the nose, you've got Kuau Pehopa, the Kamehameha product, who is a Washington transfer. So there you go. You got a transfer there, right? A guy who's played Power 5 football. And behind him, they actually list 2 guys. They list Fo'isila who got a lot of action last year. And then Anthony Sangapolutele, the UNLV transfer. There's another guy who's coming in with experience elsewhere, the man out of Waimanalo. And then at the defensive tackle, you got John Tui Tupou, 6'4", 290. We know all about him. And then Ezra Iwai Malo behind him, 6'2", 255, right? A little bit of the smaller size guy in that interior defensive line position. I haven't gotten word, and I don't know if you have either, Hunter, and I've kind of checked whether or not, and we talked a little bit about this, whether John Tui Tupou's waiver has been granted. But I take this as a good sign. We'll try and find out, and we'll know by Saturday, right, if he's on the field or not. But he is listed at the top of the depth chart. And then we'll throw kind of that edge guy in there as well. We mentioned Jonah Kahavai Welch. And listed behind him is Wyndon Ho'ohuli, who another guy, right, the Nebraska transfer, who projects to get quite a bit more playing time, I think, this season than we saw last year in his first year with the University of Hawaii program. So we'll kind of pause it there. Your thoughts on that front for Hawaii?
Yeah, to kind of answer your question about John Tui Tupou, I think as long as they're listed on the depth chart, they have at least a legal chance of playing, if you know what I'm saying. Like, there's no NCAA rules being broken with like, hey, you brought this guy, he wasn't on the depth chart. But I think at different points in the preseason, I think the coaching staff, mainly Coach Timmy Chang, looks for ways to maybe be sneaky or ways to have a competitive advantage and keep it away from guys like us from talking about things too early. And we know Vandy's probably loyal listeners of Hawaii football by now. So hey guys, how are you? We're looking forward to kicking your butt this Saturday. But just some thoughts right there where they don't need to let everything quite out of the bag, perhaps. But I would really hope and pray that he's ready to go. Unfortunately, I haven't heard an official word just yet if he's ready to go or not. But kind of with a few of those other guys, it seems like we could be seeing a good little rotation being incorporated on that D line, which I'm a fan of. Anytime that we can, certainly on the offensive side of the football, we're looking for fresh legs anytime that we can get them. And I think on the defensive side, anybody wanting to go in there and put a hat on another hat, I think we're going to be asking them to do so. Andrew Choi going to need a big season from him getting around the edge. That nose tackle position, if Sagapula is not in there, if Pehopa can kind of clog everything up, I think that would really help us help kind of set the tone with kind of containing the run.
Yeah, I think they'll be a little more stout up front. But it's going to be a similar type of story where, look, there's not a single guy listed there over 300 pounds, right? Like, they're going to be athletic. We know that, especially on the edges. They're going to have to be. And they're going to be a little undersized there, right? You've got the likes of Peopa, who's listed at 290, Tui Tupou's listed at 290, Foisilu's listed at 290. But Anthony Sangapolutele, 5'11", 265. Ezra Iwai Malo, right, 6'2", 255. Playing on the interior of a defensive line. And not very big, but they're really athletic. They're quick at the point of contact. How they hold up against the run is going to be the big question. And that's why, in part, I brought that up there. Any other thoughts on those front guys before we get to the linebackers here?
Yeah, that's a good call. Just because someone is small on paper doesn't mean they're small on the field. And maybe this is a good transition to the linebacker crew. Logan Taylor doesn't always pass the eye test for what you would like to see out of a middle linebacker, but he certainly showed out for us last season. So I would love that same sort of spirit to kind of permeate into the D line for them to play like warriors. We need that from that front crew.
Yeah. That's for sure. All right, the rest of the linebacker core, you talked about it. Isaiah Tufunga and Logan Taylor listed at the starters. Tufunga 6'1", 220. Taylor listed at 6', 215. In the depth chart, they go three deep here at the linebacker positions. Behind Tufunga, you got Noah Kemma and Jemiah Otis, one of the freshmen out of Bishop Gorman, who have made an early impression, listed there. And then at the other linebacker position, behind Logan Taylor, you've got Jalen Smith and Nalu Emerson, the Kahuku product, in there as well. Those guys are going to be big. They're going to be relied on to rack up a lot of tackles. And we saw that last season with Taylor, and obviously with Tufunga coming off of the knee injury. There's some decent depth here, I think, with the likes of Kemma and Otis and even Smith and Emerson. But what are your thoughts here as we look at the linebacker group?
Yeah, the other one that is listed here is Jonah Kahavai Welch. Certainly one of the other senior leaders, right alongside Logan Taylor. I think from a spiritual team leading standpoint, we're going to lean on those guys a great deal to kind of lead our entire team. I think more is asked of the linebacker position from just a backbone of the team standpoint than probably anywhere else on the football field other than quarterback. So we need a big year from these guys. I was impressed with their ability to fill gaps throughout fall camp. Again, difficult to say if that's a true tell of what we're going to get to see on Saturday because, hey, we're playing against our own guys. But we could tackle in space. I really liked the stuff that I was seeing from Nalu Emerson throughout season. I'm really excited for him. Anytime that we get a guy from Kahuku, Red Raider Nation here for the Bows, I think it bodes well for everybody involved. And then one person that we haven't really talked about coming off an injury is Wyndon Ho'uli. I'm wanting a big year from him as well. We've kind of been forced to wait a little longer on what he's going to produce after returning home from Nebraska. And so I'm excited to see what 12 is going to do, rocking it for us.
He's got all the physical tools. That's the first thing that jumps out at you. And he's had a little bit of tough luck when it's come to the injuries, and hopefully he is raring to go because he's a dude who could get after the quarterback, can play in space. Curious to kind of see how he's deployed when time comes for him to get on the field. All right, looking at the defensive backfields, they go two corners, two safeties, and a nickel. Here, the nickel is listed at C.J. Williams. The Shafts, the college transfer. A lot of transfers in the defensive backfield as we go through this. And then listed behind him, Elijah Palmer, another of the Bishop Gorman freshmen. Pretty impressive, especially if he and or Jemiah Otis are out there making plays early on. The two corners are listed as Verdell Edwards. Right, he's been here a few years now, the Iowa State transfer out of Texas. A lot of experience there. The other corner is Cam Stone, the Wyoming transfer, who is, as big a transfer get as Hawaii has gotten in a while. And the two guys listed behind them, Caleb Brown, listed behind Verdell Edwards on one side, and then JoJo Forrest on the other side, listed behind Cam Stone. Right, you remember JoJo Forrest, an Oregon State transfer, has been here for a little while. Caleb Brown, JUCO product. So a lot of guys with collegiate experience before showing up at the University of Hawaii. And then the two safeties, Peter Manuma, the sophomore, listed at one safety, and then the other safety, Meki Pei, right in his second year back at the University of Hawaii after starting off in Washington, another guy with Power 5 experience. And the two second-string safeties as listed here, Matangi Thompson, who started a bunch of games last year, before some injuries and whatnot out of Punahou, and then Justin Sinclair, another guy who had a good junior college season last year. So there's another dude with collegiate experience before it comes. So a lot of experience there, maybe not in a Hawaii uniform in the defensive backfield, but what kind of stands out to you, Hunter?
Um, Without a doubt, Jordan, this is the strength of our defense. That this affects everything else that we do outside of maybe Logan Taylor and Isaiah Tufanga flying around the field making tackles in space. Our success is going to be built off of our secondary. That's just the way that our defense is kind of structured. That's where our best players on defense are at this moment, especially whenever you can get a first team Mountain West transfer like Cam Stone transferring over from Wyoming, and we can plug and play him instantly. That is probably the biggest bright spot I'm looking at for our defense is what number 0 is going to do for us this season. And then on the other side of the football with Verdell Edwards, you take a look at this guy. He's got prototypical NFL cornerback kind of written all over him. Just when you look at the fact that he's 6'2", 210, can fly around the field, incredibly athletic, and is kind of one of the up and coming leaders of that defense too. I've been impressed with his ability to just kind of be a little bit more vocal and push that group forward a little bit. So it's led with those two guys. And then what can we say more about guys like Peter Manuma and Meki Pay? Peter Manuma, coming out of nowhere last season as a freshman and making an impact when there were injuries and we needed him in a big way. That one game he had 2 interceptions in the same game, and the drama with him unfortunately losing a family member last season as well, and us kind of rallying around him. I said it last year, I say it again this year. I think he's gonna continue to be one of those mainstays for us on defense and turning into one of those potentially classic Hawaii safeties that we've come to love over the years. I think we're going to have another big year from him. And, I'm excited for some other guys that we haven't really heard of much, like CJ Williams and then Elijah Palmer, kind of rounding out that Bishop Gorman pipeline that Coach Chris Brown has been able to establish so successfully. So a lot to be excited for here, but unlike maybe a classic SEC team where they're led from the trenches and then outward, we're kind of led from the perimeter of the defense going inward. So I think the success of this crew right here, our DBs in secondary, will affect the entirety of our defense.
Yeah, I think they'll be the tone setters. I agree with you. They'll need to be good, I think, to help take a lot of pressure off the front 7, and I'm fairly optimistic, fairly confident that they are up to the task. You've got some really good quality talent back there, and some versatile talent as well, guys that can play in the slot. Peter Manuma, Meki Pay, 2 dudes that, and even really when you break down beyond that, 2 dudes who can play in coverage, but also very willing to come and hit and play in some run support. So I really like what they've got back there as well. All right, let's shift it over to the offensive side of the football. Or sorry, Hunter, not to speed on you, but do you have any other thoughts on the defense? All right, let's shift it over to the offensive side of the football. Let's start up front. All right, this is going to be critical. They've got to replace a couple of bookends. They've got some experience on the inside. But it's a different offense in terms of the run and shoot. You're asking the offensive linemen to do some different things than they have been. So let's break it down. Here we'll go from left to right. The left tackle, the starter listed as Josh Atkins, 6'4", 290, the Houston transfer. Again, familiar theme, right? Left guard is Sergio Muasal, 6'3", 310. The center is listed as Iliki Tanuvasa, who's got a ton of experience at guard and center. Molta Ala is the right guard, and Kaena DeCambra, the St. Louis product out of Waianae, is listed as the right tackle. The number 2 guys, we'll go through that quickly. At left tackle, Luke Felix Fualau, 6'8", 310, out of Australia. Left guard is Arasi Mose. The backup center is listed as Solo Vaipulu, who I'm sure we'll talk about at length here. The backup right guard is listed as Zen Sotelo, a young man from the west side of Oahu. and the backup right tackle is listed as Micah Maritarangi out of Kahuku. So your initial thoughts here, Hunter, on this offensive line: Muasau, Tanuvasa, Ta'ala, pretty solid interior three, and then you got some new guys on the edges, right? Josh Atkins, kind of DeCambra, who's kind of waited his turn. Officially a sophomore on the roster, has been here for a little while now. Gonna get his shot at it. So what do you think of the offensive line here?
Yeah, in opposition to our D line, you could make the argument that at least on paper, these guys are heavy enough. All five, with exception to Josh Atkins, he's 10 pounds shy. All five of those guys are 300 pounds. So even though on paper we might not be that SEC 6'5", 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" lineup, we're solid enough to where we're going to be able to stop some guys. We're going to be able to hold our own and kind of dig our feet into the trenches and be okay here. A few of these guys, Josh Adkins, we're going to need a big season from him, protecting Shager's blind side. I'm curious to see what that looks like. Outside of that, we've got a decently experienced offensive line with returning Sergio Muasau, the brother, obviously, of Darius Muasau, Iliki Tanavasa, who by far is our leader, our core, our center of that offensive line unit, and then Mota Allah. He's a junior as well, so it's not like we've got a whole bunch of brand new guys on our offensive line, which is always something that I look for. I think the offensive line as a position group needs experience on there, at least from a couple of your key guys to not be overwhelmed by situations, not be overwhelmed by different looks that they're seeing, and they set the tone for the entire game, Jordan. So looking for a big season from those guys. And then from a specific guy standpoint, I'm most excited about kind of DeCambra from St. Louis. I think, he had a great camp. One of our bigger guys on the offensive line. And hey, what don't you like about a local boy from St. Louis rounding out our offensive line? So looking forward to a great year from this crew.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see early on, how in sync they are as well. We talked a little bit about the skill guys. It's some decent size on the outside, 6'3", 300. Josh Atkins, 6'4". You mentioned the only offensive lineman there listed as a starter that's under 300 pounds. Didn't really play at Houston. He comes over, right, and then his backup as well, Luke Felix Fualalo, the young man that went to Mater Dei and then transferred from Utah, right? He was at Utah for a little while and came to University of Hawaii last year. So he got some size out there, 6'8", 310. The guy who's originally from Australia. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then we'll save the Solo Vaipulu discussion here when we get to some of the other offensive talk. Let's talk about the pass catchers. Tight end Grayson Morgan, right? The 6'2", 230-pounder, second year at the University of Hawaii, junior college guy. Limited action last year. Obviously, Caleb Phillips was terrific, but Morgan has been kind of the guy that emerged a little while ago now as that primary tight end in the slot. They'll use him in multiple ways. He's listed as a starter. Defantao Efa, the 6'4", 205-pounder. He is listed as the backup there, right? Wide receiver, kind of converted, big target, much more of a receiving type guy. Morgan, I think, is much more of a hybrid in that sense. And then we'll get into the receivers here. We figured a lot of guys were going to see some action here early on in the season in particular. It is very much an open competition. But the three starters listed, Pofele Ashlock, which maybe if you go through this entire two deep was perhaps the biggest, I don't know if surprise is the right word, but the name I think that will jump out to most people is like, oh, Ashlock, okay. He's done well throughout the offseason, 6'2", 175-pound freshman out of Texas. The other two starters, Jonah Pinoki, no surprise there. And then Stephen McBride, the Kansas transfer. I think no surprise there. Getting into the backups, they go 3 deep at every receiver spot. Again, so nobody's surprised. Behind Ashlock, they list Koala Nishigaya and Nick Senecal. And then behind Jonah Pinoke, they list Chucky Hines and Carson Pupunu, the Lahaina native. And then behind Stephen McBride, they list Alex Perry, the freshman, and Jalen Walthall, right? A lot of familiar names there. Walthall, Hines, Pupunu, Nishigaya, Senecal, guys that have come through this program already. So your thoughts here, Hunter? We've talked about in years past, the run and shoot, it's usually like a core of guys. It's not a deep receiving core with a ton of guys get a lot of reps. And so it is going to be, I think, imperative for each of these guys when they get on the field to show out, because there's going to be a lot of competition for playing time in a run and shoot offense that perhaps, usually it's 4 receivers out there, but perhaps it's 3 receivers and a tight end. So even fewer spots for these guys to go ahead and compete for.
That's right. I think it's funny that they only have 3 positions for wide receiver out there, because very often with the run and shoot, you're going to see at least 4 of those receivers out there. One of those receivers will probably take the place of the Y or the tight end. And so any number of these 9 guys that we just mentioned, I think we're going to need to be familiar with all of their numbers and all of their names, because just like you said, I think more will be leaned on from the depth of this core than any other position group on the entire team. I think we're going to plug and play and mix and match guys, certainly on a drive-to-drive basis, maybe even a play-to-play basis, depending on what we're seeing. And, we without letting too much of the cat out of the bag, we practiced a lot of no huddle during fall. And if you're incorporating that and getting the ball down the field, you're going to want fresh legs in there to continue to give yourself the best chance. I love how I almost wanted to say evenly matched, but it just seems like strength is well spread out in this core of receivers, where any number of these guys can win one-on-one matchups. Any number of these guys can occupy a safety over the middle of the field and create space for one of these other 9 right behind them. So that's the beauty of the run and shoot, that it's not just based on your main wide receiver on the outside. To flash back to 2019, we had 4 different wide receivers hit 1,000 yards for the season. So in its nature, it's designed to do that. It's designed to hold a position group like this. And, I could get into any number of these guys specifically, Jordan. They've all had great fall camps and all kind of bring something different to the table. I'm excited for this crew, probably the most of any crew position group on the entire team, Jordan.
Yeah, it's a good note because, typically in the run and shoot, it's not a no-huddle offense. I think that's one of the misnomers of the offense over the years, where it put up so many points. People think they love tempo. They like to go fast. No huddle. It's like, it was really not the case. It's actually kind of a methodical, slow-paced offense in a lot of ways, because you're deciphering with the time allotted and making sure everybody's making the proper reads out there. All of these receivers, including the tight ends, outside of Koala Nishigaya, love Koala, big fan. Everybody's 6'1" or taller. Like it's a pretty big receiving core for the quarterbacks to throw the ball to, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But I'm with you. I think they will utilize all of these guys. Like we'll see a lot of them, especially early on. Maybe somebody will emerge and it's like, look, that guy can't come off the field. He's Devon Best or he's some of these other guys, Greg Salas or whoever, right? Whatever it is, like they've got to be on the field. We'll see if somebody kind of runs and takes that. All right, getting into the running backs, Tylan Hines, no surprise, listed as the starter, 5'7", 175 pounds. We saw what he did last year. I'm pumped. I'm excited to see him. The backup is listed as Landon Sims, the converted tight end. We've talked about some of the injuries to that position, including Najee Bryant-Lele. Hopefully we'll get him back in a few weeks. But the other big topic of conversation, and you kind of slipped this in there, Hunter, and understandably so. We didn't want the listeners from elsewhere to get too privy to the information. But like everybody's reporting it now, it seems like. And apparently, not only is Solo Vaipulu the backup center listed as number 52 on the roster, apparently he's also got a jersey number 0, where they may deploy him.
On the depth chart. He's got a slash.
He's going slash here. Apparently, they might deploy him indeed as somebody in the backfield, whether that's like an H-back, whether that's a running back, whether that's just a 6th offensive lineman pass protecting on 3rd and 15. This is a guy who started 14 games or whatever it was as a true freshman in 2018. Like, that's how long he's been here, by the way. He is one of the Rolo holdovers that's now on his 3rd coaching staff. But he got a lot of experience early on. He's gone through some injury, the COVID years and all that kind of stuff. Redshirted last year, and thus gets another year here. And so he's a guy, right? He's listed at 6'2", 280. Has always been very athletic, has played guard, has played center, and now apparently will be asked to do some things potentially with the ball in his hands, but some things definitely off the line of scrimmage in the backfield. So it's Hines at 5'7", 175, and potentially even Solo Vaipulu at 6'2", 280. This would be very run and shoot. This would be very June and Rolo, right? Whether it was Reagan Mauia or, some of these
Nady
other
Lau.
guys that, Nady Lau, right? Nate wasn't a converted lineman, but he's a big boy back there. Weskili, Keepy, Dayton Faruta, like bigger backs that can pass protect, that have nimble feet, that understand protection, that understand the intricacies of that, but also can maybe hurt you with their legs. So yeah, that we could see the range. I don't know if they'll deploy him that way on Saturday. Who knows? But that is a wrinkle to kind of keep your eye on when it comes to the running back position.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love how you said that. This has been incorporated throughout the history of the run and shoot. When you need your mainstay running back to kind of rest his legs, you still need pass protection help out there. And so I think that's something Solo has a little bit of experience in, Jordan, is pass protection. So bringing him back into the backfield with maybe a different pullover jersey on top of that, I'm curious what that's going to kind of look like from just a practical standpoint. But I'm excited. At different points throughout fall camp, saw him run out there and catch passes, get balls in the flat, put his foot in the ground, and put Logan Taylor on his butt with a solid juke move that almost ended practice about a week ago. It was incredible. Yeah, really excited for what all sorts of packages he could be incorporated in, even power I. When you think about goal line and 3rd and short, having a big boy back there that loves to hit people bodes well for your running game. Speaking of big boys back there, Landon Sims had a great fall camp. Kind of came out of nowhere. Obviously, he's somewhat of a legacy around here, but we didn't really think much of him coming into fall camp. We were really looking at Tylan Hines and Najee Bryant-Lele as our kind of 2 mainstay running backs heading into the season. And then Najee going down with a lower leg injury. We've really looked for who that other guy was going to be, and obviously brings a different skill set to Tylan Hines, kind of Darren Sproles-esque style of play that he has. So interested to see what this position group is going to bring. And similar to Solo Vaipulu occupying more than just what the paper shows right here, I think it's important to add that we're also going to see number 2, Tylan Hines, out in the slot catching passes. And if my math is correct, Jordan, that's 10 guys just on the written too deep right now that could go out and catch passes. So this is a man, what's the word? It is multifaceted in the truest sense of the word. It is incredibly dynamic. It's not so much the tools that we have, but also Timmy and Coach Shoemaker's sparsing and kind of spicing an offense together, and how to use each of these positions in the right place at the right time, and put a game plan together. And so we have a lot of different tools to play with here.
That we do. And a lot of different tools for the quarterbacks to go ahead and utilize. Braden Shager, no surprise, listed as the starter at quarterback, listed 6'3", 225, real solid frame. He has been the known QB1 for a while now. I think the interesting thing here has been, who was going to be number 2, right? Joey Yellen, who got a lot of run last year. It's Jake Farrell. Jake Farrell's listed as the number 2 guy, 6'5", 225. Obviously, a lot of names that created some buzz, whether it was John Kiabe Sangapolutele, the freshman out of Punahou, Dalen Morris, the transfer out of Navy, good runner. How do they deploy him, if at all? The graduate transfer there. But again, no surprise, it's Shager, and listed as the number 2 guy. It's Jake Farrell here as we conclude the offensive discussion. Any thoughts there? As this is obviously Shager's job, and if healthy, will be the guy, and obviously we hope for that. But yeah. Farrell perhaps the next guy up.
Yeah, you mentioned a few of those guys. I'm pretty sure they're traveling with 4 to game 1 against Vandy, including Dalen Morris as well as Joey Yellen. Those are going to be the 4. They bringing Morris out there because he's probably our best dual threat runner option if we did want to incorporate that. Again, I think Timmy is looking for anything and everything to help us win. So that's going to be interesting to see if we don't see him out there. But this is without question Braden Shager's make it or break it year. I think with the full transition over to the run and shoot, there's always a lot of attention on the quarterback. But if you're going to QB a run and shoot offense at University of Hawaii, I hope you like the spotlight, because we will be watching very intently. So, a lot will be asked of him, but he is certainly capable. Gotten to know the young man, Jake Farrell, as well. Gotten a chance to play golf with those guys on a few different occasions, and love those guys. Really, really great character guys. They're great leaders. I'm excited for what they're going to do this season. And I think Braden just needs to kind of get his feet wet in this offense. In a game-like environment, you can only practice so much before you find out truly what you're made of. And I think Jake Farrell is one of those system guys that is trusted by that coaching staff to go out there, not turn the ball over, maybe not with quite as much high power, big play capability as a guy like Braden Shager, but he certainly, in my observation, would be a guy to take care of the football if his number were called. So I think we're in good shape with either one of those guys at the helm.
Yeah, dudes who have a chance to put up some big numbers this season in this offense. And we'll get our first look at them on Saturday. All right, wrap up the first half real quickly with a quick discussion of the specialists. Matt Shipley is listed as the number 1 place kicker. Kickoff guy is Ben Falk. The punter is listed as either Ben Falk or Matt Shipley. Both guys obviously with a lot of experience there. The backup place kicker and kickoff guy is Kai Kluth, the freshman out of San Diego, 6'4", 155 pounds. The long snapper is Solomon Landrum. The holder is Ben Falk. The kick returners are Cam Stone and Chucky Hines. Tylen Hines also listed in there. And then the punt returner can either be Cam Stone or Tylen Hines. Look, if they can get touches and returnable looks for Cam Stone, Tylen Hines. I like that a lot. Matt Shipley has been super reliable and consistent. Whether he's also handling the punting duties or if it's going to be Ben Falk, right? At 6'6". It's a big kicking group, right? With Ben Falk, Kai Klutz, 6'4", the freshman, not a big guy, 155 pounds. Then, Matt Shipley's a small guy in the group at 6'1", 190. I just kind of like that about it. All bigger than like Solomon Landrum, who's going to be in there and doing a good job as the long snapper. So any quick thoughts on the specialist here, Hunter?
This is going to be kind of Ben Falk's coming out party in a little bit. Kicks a phenomenal high spiral. Excited to kind of see what he can bring to the table here. I think we all know and expect what we're going to see from Matt Shipley. Great place kicker for us. And then in the kick return, punt return section, I'm excited to see what Cam Stone can do. I just really hope and pray that himself and Tylen Hines stay healthy, because we certainly need them in their starter positions. So excited that they're using them in a different capacity, but need them on their main role first and foremost.
Yeah, they've the chance to perhaps be a game changer in the return game there. Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a quick halftime break, and then we'll get into a little Vanderbilt discussion on the other side.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
Second halftime here on episode 104. Jordan Hunter back with you. All right, let's take a look at Vandy. This is the second ever meeting with the Commodores. We all remember last year, right? 63-10, losing at home at Ching. It was only 21-10 at halftime. Vanderbilt ended up finishing last season 5-7, 2-6 in the SEC. Crazy enough that was 5-7, as that's the worst any SEC program finished last year. Pretty amazing that every single program in that conference got at least 5 wins last year. All right, the season opener in Nashville slated for a 1:30 p.m. kickoff time. Of course, you can listen to it right here on the ESPN Honolulu platforms, streaming online, and the Sideline Hawaii app as well. Our buddies John and Mark Veneri will be on the call and everything, getting you set for kickoff. You got countdown to kickoff at 11:30 a.m. starting on Saturday with our guys Josh Pacheco and Arnold Martinez getting you all prepped for kickoff there. Television-wise, it's on the SEC network. Vanderbilt is a 17.5-point favorite at last check, which was a little bit earlier this morning. The total remains at 55.5. And so for Vanderbilt, this will be their third year under alum Clark Lee. He's done a pretty good job, I think, getting this team pretty competitive. They took a little bit of a hit during COVID. I had a rough go of it. But he's got them playing pretty competitive football. Just the 2 wins in the SEC last year. They had a couple of other close games, got blown out by the usual suspects, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama there. Looking at some of their personnel real quick, you'll remember quarterback Mike Wright from last year, threw for 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 163 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Still nightmares of that guy. He started the first 3 games and basically the last 3 games last year. True freshman AJ Swan started the middle portion of the season. Well, Mike White's at Mississippi State now, so we don't have to worry about him. It looks like the sophomore AJ Swan is the projected starter. He started those middle games and then got hurt last season. That's why Mike Wright came in. And honestly, they played maybe their best football at the end of the season when Wright was back in there as the starter. They also lost 1,000-yard rusher Ray Davis. Wright was the number 2 rusher on the team as well, so they lose their top 2 producers in terms of yards on the ground. It's a bit of an inexperienced backfield. Patrick Smith, Chase Gillespie, and Cedric Alexander projected to be kind of the top backs there. But their best returning weapons are on the outside. They've got Jaden McGowan and Will Shepard at receiver. McGowan led them in receiving yards returning, and then Will Shepard, who caught 9 touchdown passes last year, which was near the top of the SEC, had a really good season last year. You remember Anthony Orji, I think scored a touchdown last year. He was all over the place. Dude's with the Saints now, is 3rd-team SEC linebacker. But their pass defense overall wasn't very good. They were like in the bottom 10% or something like that. They're around 125 in the nation last year in pass defense, which, might bode well for us. Who knows? They may be improved on that side of the football as well. All right. What are your thoughts here, Hunter? We've talked a little bit about the pedigree, the profile of a Vanderbilt. Experience at quarterback, but not the guy they saw last year. Not a lot of experience in the backfield next to him in terms of running backs. They got a couple of good weapons out there, but as we talked about, maybe going into the strength of the Hawaii defense. And then defensively for Vandy, a mix. They've got about half of their starters back on that side of the football as well, but they lose their all SEC guy, Anthony Orji, who had a million tackles last year. I forget exactly what his number was. He was over 100.
So, yeah, Jordan, this is going to be a true test for us. First and foremost, it's going to be a test in the trenches. That was one thing that you could not ignore last season whenever we saw these guys. And I'm looking at the depth chart. A lot of them are returning. Whenever I look at that offensive line, they have that classic SEC size right there. I mean, right off the bat, 6'5", 6'7", 6'5", 6'4", 6'4". I mean, 6'4" is the smallest that you're going to see in the entire depth of their offensive line unit. And so our D-line is going to have their hands full getting through those guys. Now, one benefit of kind of what we were talking about is somewhat of that inexperience. If AJ Swan is going to be their starter, I'm not expecting him to have near the game of what we saw last season from their starter on the ground and in the air, pretty much scoring at will against us. I don't project that actually happening. And the other interesting thing, Patrick Smith, their running back, who is nicknamed Cheeks, by the way.
That's right.
Not sure what kind of cheeks they're referring to right there, but that's what it tells us on this Too Deep, which is hilarious. Curious to see what he's gonna bring to the table in their running attack. I'm sure we're gonna see him, number 4, mixing with our number 16, Logan Taylor, on many a plays this Saturday. And then some of that receiver crew that on paper is not all that much better than some of our guys, which is encouraging to see from just a position group to position group standpoint. It's tough to really say what we're going to see from a scouting report standpoint, because they ran the ball all over us, but they don't have near the dual threat capability at quarterback that they did last year, which really kind of adjusts and kind of shifts the way that an opposing offense can attack you. So when you don't have that, any number of things can be thrown at you. So I think Coach Yoro and our defensive staff is going to be making adjustments on the fly, and kind of seeing what we're going to have, making a shift over to their defense. Again, I think it's kind of the name of the game in the SEC, Jordan. It's you win in the trenches. And when you look at their nose tackle, their D tackle, their D ends, their smallest guy is 6'2", 290. So in a sense, their smallest guy is kind of our biggest guy. They are huge. They're huge on the D line. So name of the game for us as an offense against those guys, I think one really good thing to look for as Hawaii fans is how quickly we can get the ball out of our hands, how quickly we can get to maybe a receiver on the outside, getting those hitches, taking those hitches as quick as we can. It's going to be a tall task for Shager to get to potentially his 3rd read, or certainly his 4th read in the run and shoot. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at where can we find space and give our big boys up front a break in what will probably be a tall task for them at a day in the office against some of these big guys at the SEC. But anything can happen, Jordan. Just like always, I'm always curious what the turnover ratio is going to look like. That's always one of the the first signs that I look for in a Hawaii win. We usually win the turnover ratio. And so that can be affected on both sides of the football here. And a true tell on how disciplined our team is as a whole is usually reflected by that number. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, as you put it, it's going to be a really physical, athletic opponent, and a great way to get the season started. The first time Hawaii will play a road game at an SEC school since the 2008 season opener, right? When they lost at Florida the year after the Sugar Bowl run. Hawaii all-time 0-4 on the road against the SEC. So this will be the fifth trip into SEC territory. 3-10-1 all-time against current SEC opponents. Hawaii's lost 2 straight season openers after winning 4 straight, right? You remember that going back to 2018. It had a lot of success early in the season, even that COVID year where they went up and surprised Fresno in 2020. They've also lost 6 straight road games. So, some trends going in the wrong direction. I don't know if that changes here against Vanderbilt. I'm not necessarily predicting a Hawaii win. I think they can be competitive, especially at that 17.5 number. If they just put up, a decent defensive performance, I think they'll be able to be within striking distance for me there. But did want to also mention and give a shout out to the Vanderbilt athletic department. Portions of proceeds from each ticket sold to the game this Saturday between Vanderbilt and Hawaii will be donated to the Hawaii Community Foundation's Maui Strong Fund. So that's pretty cool stuff from the Commodore athletic department there. Any final thoughts, Hunter, on this matchup between Hawaii and Vanderbilt? Not necessarily asking for a prediction or a score or anything like that, but what's your sense on kind of how this game will play out before we wrap things up and get into the closing?
Yeah, I think, when you think of expectations for this front, or for this team, excuse me, I really like that idea of 1 score a quarter. If we can kind of shrink our heading as a team to win every quarter, and maybe a win for us is just 1 touchdown a quarter. I want to kind of curb our enthusiasm, if you will, on I don't know just yet if we're at the point with the run and shoot where we can expect a 45, 50 plus points every single game production. And so I would love just 1 click up, and I feel like that would be accomplished with 1 score a quarter. I think that's certainly doable from this team. I've loved watching them kind of build throughout fall camp, and this is going to be our first real test against a real opponent. And so, hey, at the end of the day, we got football back. And to your point on Vandy donating a portion of each ticket sale, that's a touch of class right there. And Vanderbilt is certainly a classy institution, a classy university. Very high achieving academic school, and their fan base was incredibly kind with the different folks that I had the opportunity of conversing with last season. Sure, we're not big fans of them because we're playing them, but I do want that said, that not every school or not every team would do that or would consider doing that. So I do want to spread our aloha for the Vandy faithful that might happen to be listening or watching to Hawaii Football Now. We certainly appreciate you guys, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, big thanks to Vanderbilt. That's really cool stuff. And doing what they can to help out with the relief efforts here on Maui. Much appreciated there. All right. Nice long episode for us. A lot to talk about, man. There's never a shortage once we get into game week. Quick little 2-minute drill before we head out of here. Captains named: Verdell Edwards, Jonah Kahavai Welch, Logan Taylor, as well as Tylen Hines and Iliki Tanuvaso. So congratulations to those guys. That's a really high honor to be selected from amongst their peers and the coaching staff to help lead this team. Says a lot about those guys for sure. Any final thoughts before we head out of here, Hunter?
Man, game week. Tough to make too much of a prediction on what's going to happen, but I would love to focus on just small incremental wins for each position group. You know, if we can keep them under 250 on the ground, I think that would be a great accomplishment compared to last season. When I think about the defense, offensively, I would love to say no turnovers. You never know what can happen, though. A tipped ball, tips and overthrows, Jordan. We got to get those. Thank you, Coach Martinez, for that. I would love if we were situationally sound and just ready as a complete unit. We can definitely work on those sort of things, you know, no 12-man on the field or not enough guys on the field. Everybody's situationally aware. We can work on those sort of things to be prepared for later in the season. That's why you play these non-conference bigger games, to get yourself kind of prepped and ready for the rest of the season. So I'm looking for those certain things. Obviously, I would love a win. I would love if we could steal one over in Nashville, but most immediately, that's what I'm focused on right now, Jordan.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Anytime you can get out there, SEC territory, start of the season, no matter who you're playing. But some really good chances for these guys to make a name for themselves on national TV, to debut the run and shoot, to kind of, you know, the little rebirth of the program, if you will, in year 2 under Coach Chang. I can't wait. Again, you can listen to all the action on ESPN Honolulu. Kickoff is at 1:30. With countdown to kickoff starting at 11:30 as well. All right, that'll do it for us. We hope you guys are pumped. I know a lot of you are. And again, mahalos to everybody for dropping us a line in the comments and whatnot. We always appreciate your guys' input. Big thanks to Jonathan for keeping us in line here and getting up early to help record this thing for us. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile and HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union as well. We'll talk to you next week as we break down the opening week performance between Vanderbilt and the Bows. All right, we'll see you guys. Take care.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.